Hello again, my name's Kehoe. I'm the chairman of UKIP in Erewash, and I've been doing a series of talks on the UKIP manifesto, and within that I'm doing a little mini-series on item 1 in the manifesto, which is about Brexit. And today I'm looking at, on my third little talk in that mini-series, at why is the withdrawal agreement a bad deal. And remember that Mrs May told us and promised us that she would rather have no deal than a bad deal. In fact, she promised it umpteen times and very solemnly, and we relied upon those promises. Now, why therefore would we say that what's being offered to us now is a bad deal? Well, there are many reasons, and I'm going to deal with some of them. Firstly, the deal proposes that we pay £39 billion to the European Union for the privilege of simply being allowed to leave them. They give absolutely nothing in return, nothing whatsoever. Now, even the kindest person to the European Union, the one who is most in favour of it, can only argue that we owe at maximum the figure of £8 billion in order to deal with our present and arguably our future liabilities to them. And we know that on good authority because the Attorney General Geoffrey Cox has said so. That's all we can be said to owe at the highest level possible. And yet we're offering them, for nothing in return, a further £31 billion. Now, this is not small change. These are ludicrously high amounts of money that we're paying to them simply to be allowed to go home and leave them. Outrageous. It's just no sane, sensible person would agree to that. Can you imagine any circumstances in which you would agree to that in your own personal life, in any organisation or group whatsoever? But secondly, the withdrawal agreement essentially provides that we will continue to be a rule taker for years to come. By that I mean we'll have to obey and observe and abide by rules and regulations and directives that we had no part in drawing up. Not that we ever had much of a part in drawing them up in the first place, because the directives of the European Union are made with little or no regard to what we want. And that's always been the case, but it goes even further because we'll have no part whatsoever to play, and yet we'll have to continue abiding by their rules, most notably within the context of trade, insofar as we stay within either a temporary or a permanent customs union, because that would require us to abide by their rules and standards and measures and weights and all the rest of it. Health and safety, environmental rules, and all of it we'd have to abide by. And that's unacceptable. We want to make our own rules. That's the whole point of it. We want to just make our own laws, our own rules, and do things our way. It's not unreasonable. That's the whole point of this. And the next problem with the withdrawal agreement is that it gives us no ability to end the backstop, which I spoke about yesterday. Remember, the backstop is essentially a kind of temporary customs union pertaining either to Northern Ireland only, which is what the European Union proposed, that Northern Ireland alone would remain within the customs union for a period of time, potentially forever. But Mrs May rejected that, saying that would create a border that she didn't want to exist between Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom. So what she proposed instead is that the entire United Kingdom would remain within a customs union for a period of time, subject to this backstop by which she hopes to make sure that the arrangement is temporary. But the trouble is that we can only withdraw from that arrangement that she has negotiated. We can only get out of it with the permission of the European Union. Again, I keep saying in these talks, you couldn't make it up. This is what a grown-up person who's supposed to be a Prime Minister has agreed with them. So therefore, we're part of this backstop or customs union, whichever way you want to call it, for as long as they want us to be. And we can't just walk away. The only basis on which we can do so is if we can prove bad faith on their part, which is almost impossible to do as a legal matter, because the burden of proof necessary to show it is so absurdly high, you just can't do it. Not least because the very arbitrator that will decide whether the European Union is in bad faith in refusing to let us leave the backstop is the European Court of Justice, and they're hardly likely to rule in our favour when everything is in favour of them wanting to look after themselves at our expense and not to cooperate with us. That's what they've been doing the whole time. So why would they start being fair and cooperating with us when we go to arbitration? So the other problem with the withdrawal agreement is it leaves the European Court in control of us to one extent or another for years to come. And there are various different categories and provisions which either have them in control for 4 years or 8 years from the end of 31st December 2020, the transition period. So for up to the end of December 2028, on certain matters, the European Court of Justice would continue to rule over us. Now, this is just completely intolerable. It loses sight of the very reason why we wanted to leave in the first place, which is to be a free, independent nation. We have the Supreme Court, which used to be called the House of Lords, and that was seen for centuries as the gold standard, the envy of the world. Why do we need to go to the European Court for ultimate guidance and as an ultimate court of appeal? No way should we accept that. So the reality of it all is essentially that the withdrawal agreement presents us really with just Brexit in name only. It's not a real Brexit. It's just a dressed up pretend Brexit to trick us into thinking that we've been given what we voted for. And the only reason that they are putting this to us is because they have so little respect for us. They think that we are so stupid and so dumbed down that we will accept it. Now, I think sadly that many of us are stupid and many of us are dumbed down, but hopefully there are enough of us left who are not to stand up against this and say, no, we will not accept it. We don't accept your brainwashing. We don't accept your endless repetition of subliminal phrases like crashing out of the EU without a deal and so on, implying that it would be a disaster if we were to leave without a deal. I don't accept that, and I know that millions of others don't accept that. And we need to stand up and let these politicians know that we are not falling for it, and we are not going to simply meekly bow down to what they're saying to us. The House of Commons has become the most corrupt organisation it has ever been, not only in living memory, but I think even historically, going back into even the 18th century. I cannot think of a time when the House of Commons was more corrupt than it is now. And I don't just mean in terms of the thievery in relation to their expenses claims that so many of them were guilty of, but just the sheer effrontery, the sheer cheek that they have in the breaking of promises, that they've made solemn promises in manifestos which they are just blithely casting aside and failing to deliver Brexit whilst telling us that they are. So that gives you some brief reasons, but the next point I want to make just finally is that very, very recently, just in the last day or so, the House of Commons have voted that we ought to seek from the European Union a period of extension to extend Article 50, to extend the period of time for negotiating with them. Honestly, it's just too ridiculous for words. And the proposal is that while we negotiate with the European Union, we will then continue to make monthly payments to them for as long as it takes to reach an agreement with the European Union that they're happy with. Now, you don't have to have a massive IQ to realise that it's not in the interest of the European Union to reach an agreement with us. They're going to keep that going forever. While we keep paying out to them every month, why on earth would they want to act reasonably and as an officer and a gentleman and arrive at a reasonable, proper, honest deal with us? It's absolutely not in their interests. And it's only the stupidity is the politest way I can put it. Actually, I think it's treachery, it's treason on the part of our politicians that causes them to want to surrender us into the hands of the European Union in this way. Anyway, I could go on all day about this, but I'm told I need to keep these videos short. So I'm going to go back in the next talk to look at what Mrs May should have done in the negotiations as compared to what she did do. Thank you very much for watching.